Oh, to be one of those participants 2 sleeps away, Robbo. Oh, to be one of those.
I hope they sleep well, Gerard. I've asked a lot of people that. How do you sleep these days?
They won't.
No,
they won't.
Probably not.
But the magnitude of it is built so perfectly. So there were decisions to make, weren't there? Strategic decisions and decisions to make on an injury front. This is how the teams have landed tonight. As Collingwood have activated Jack Ginnivan, he's going to play. So he comes into the 22 and Pat Lipinski goes to the sub. We knew that Billy Frampton was coming in for Dan McStay, who is injured. These are thanks to Telstra. And on the Brisbane side of things, there's no change. So Jack Payne was past fit enough, but he is going to be in an emergency. They're not taking the risk, and Darcy Gardner holds his place for the club's first grand final since 2004. And we would imagine that Lyons will be the sub, as he has been in this period. I like the Ginnivan move.
Yeah, so do I. So do I. It's interesting. So you wish the coaches were here, because we had the coaches saying sometimes we talk for an hour about who's going to be the sub. Talking about the sub's going to be on grand final day could go for hours. Oh, when you pick a sub, do you need someone who's going to cover a lot of positions? Or do you need a midfielder? Ginnivan comes on as a forward. Do they have to be more sort of rounded in a grand final? I'm wrapped for Ginnivan. He was out of the team. He's worked his way back in. And then you still have to contribute when you come on. You can be a sub and you can come on the ground and not contribute, and you can quickly lose your position. But he's been able to come on and have impact in most of the times he come on, all the times he's come on, to be honest, in recent weeks. Lipinski, he's a bit of a whipping boy, Lipinski. He didn't have a great first half last week. He had a pretty good finish. I think he might have played nearly every game. I don't know off the top of my head. So he'd probably think he's unlucky, but I like the firepower, the extra potency.
Yeah, so he's seasoned.
Collingwood.
And that would mean that
Ginnivan.
If they got an injury early, Lipinski is a really good cover in
back
a lot
flank,
of different areas.
Yeah, he can play midfield, wing. If people want to push the half-back flank, maybe play half-forward line. You're right, Gerard.
And I think there's a hint in here that they've got to score more. I don't see them winning with a score of 58 or 60, and Ginnivan is good for goals. He's been good for goals in big games always. A
lot of people this week have been talking about the impact of Collingwood Smalls in the forward 50, how big that is for the game. It's all in part due to Harris's dominance in the air. So they're not going to just kick it, bomb it long for Harris to do what he pleases. So there's been a lot of talk about, well, let's bring in some dirty ball, just get it on, move it forward. That'll happen anyway, because it's a grand final. The pressure, we saw it on the ISO last night. The pressure is so intense, Gerard, and I haven't been there, but you can watch it. You've got to get the ball, and sometimes you just got to move it. We'll ask Jordan about it when he comes in. Yep. Sometimes you just got to move it. And I think Collingwood want to move it, and they'll have in the forward line at any given time, they'll have the Ginnivan, Elliott, McCreery, Hill.
Yep. So this was the final prep set at the Gabba this morning. So they've got 3 players who have seen grand final action, but obviously none with the Lions. Charlie Cameron was there with Adelaide, Lachie Neale with Freo as the sub, and Josh Dunkley's seen it twice with the Dogs for 1 flag. It marries up with Collingwood, who have 9 players who returned from the 2018 grand final, and they have Scott Pendlebury and Steele Sidebottom in grand final number 5, and they're the 2 premiership players. What's missing for each team? So Taylor Adams and Dan McStay missing for Collingwood, and Will Ashcroft is missing long-term for the Lions. Their choice around Jack Payne, so he's done everything that he can to present himself as ready. He's in a good enough state to be chosen as an emergency, but Darcy Gardner did the job, and I guess you have to be risk-averse on this Thursday, don't you, heading to a grand final?
Fagan's been crystal all through the final series. I'm not going in with any risks, and he stood by his word. And it's really sad for Payne, but you're out. Bad luck. So let's move on to the 22. The 22 are playing. Grand final experience, not a lot. But they're a manly team. They're a mature team. Now, they've got the kids on the wings, you know, a bit of Wilmot, a bit of Jasper Fletcher, but every other part of the ground, there's experience. Now, the way they're playing, everyone goes, God, it's going to be... They're powerful Lions. If they get their game going, they're going to do it. Absolutely guarantee you right now, Gerard, there are going to be players on the Lions team who we're going to have high expectations from, and they're not going to deliver, because that's what happens on grand final day. We go, he didn't. Well, that was surprising. He didn't stand up. And on the other flip, there are going to be players who really stand up. And the players that need to stand up are the ones that are really going to influence the game, like a Lachie Neale without a tag. To me, the Joe Danaher, Darcy Moore matchup, I think's the matchup of the grand final. Who wins that? Joe kicks 6, mate. The Lions they're marching home. Darcy keeps Joe quiet. Enormous pressure then goes on to Hetwood, and the pressure keeps going down and down and down. So I don't know. You don't know. No one knows who's going to win.
No, that's
no
the beauty
idea.
of this grand final is you can run all sorts of theories. You can lean into what suits you, and there's a lot of that that's going on at the moment. Is you can lean into the poor record at the MCG that the Lions have had. I'm a little bit of. I feel like they solved that.
Yeah, I'm not.
I
with
think they
this
solved
bad,
it in the semi-final last year, and I thought they played really well against Melbourne. They lost. They blew that game against Melbourne. They'd commanded the MCG. They blew that because they pulled up too early and learnt big lessons from that. The head-to-head record is compromised by who was there. This is such a curious factor, a maximum of 29 degrees. So we've had 87 as the one that immediately comes to mind. Carlton and Hawthorn was in the 30s.
Was it?
But so was 2015 Hawthorn and West Coast. This is highly abnormal.
You're the only bloke I know would remember the weather 30 years ago on a particular day.
Highly abnormal that it would be this hot on grand final.
Yeah, it will take it. It'll affect someone or a team, and it'll be discussed, and it'll be maybe used as an excuse or a reason, or who knows. All I know is that every grand final we all watch and we all go to, something happens in the grand final and we go, wow, we didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And it might be Jasper Fletcher. It might be Bo McCreary. Imagine if Nick Dacos has 38 and kicks 3.
Yes.
The 20-year-old superstar of this game, who was not robbed of a Brownlow, but if he probably played, he probably would have won it.
Yep.
And then he recovers, knee, comes back, plays one game and wins a Norm Smith medal. We'll be all sitting there going, what a year from this wonder kid.
That'd be something.
Like, there's stories everywhere, every line.
The weather already intervened today. They closed Brisbane Airport for the Storms for a while, so the Lions' flight was delayed. They're in Melbourne now.
How long?
A couple of hours they were delayed for.
Bet you they were nervous when they first cancelled. No doubt.
Says the AFL would have been a bit nervy. You've got to get them here for a parade. Dayne Zorko on this night for a few years has shared it with us in various guises while he's waited his turn. His turn comes in game 250 to see a grand final.
Look, it's such a privilege to play one game of AFL football, but to play 250 and for it to be in the occasion like a grand final, I'm forever grateful, and it's an unbelievable personal achievement. But I think there's a lot more on the line than me just playing 250 games on the weekend. We've got a team that's worked extremely hard, not only this year, but for a number of years under Fades, and the opportunity that presents ourselves is one we certainly don't want to let slip.
Dayne Zorko, a veteran of the Lions. There's a lovely touch at Collingwood. It's a club that fully embraces and parades its history. So Thorold Merritt was there at training today. He turns 90 on Saturday. He played in grand finals in 52, 53, 55, 56 and 58. And the premierships obviously of 53 and the miracle of 58. He had worked previously as an expert on the ABC, so when I was there, I got to meet Thorold a couple of times. And a more lovely gentleman you wouldn't find.
Got a good head of hair on him, isn't he, for 90? You're right. Footy clubs do it so well. Now, could you imagine what he feels like? His time has come and gone. 70 years ago we played in the 53. 70 years ago, Gerard. And Collingwood says, come back down. And they not only meet the players will celebrate you. That's a really magical moment.
Yep, a winger in the team of the century and a member of the Collingwood
Hall of Fame. I read about him. I don't know him. He was a good player.
So there are great traditions associated with the grand final. One of my absolute favourites is the Premiership poster, which reaches its 70th year. It is in the custody of Mark Knight right now, and it is always a great pleasure to welcome Mark on this night to our show. Mark Knight, welcome.
Great to be here, and it is so good to hear you guys talk about that game. That was so passionate, Robbo. I've got to draw the front page on Saturday, and I'm doing Moore and Danaher on the front page now after hearing you talk.
It's a big matchup, Mark. Who do you barrack for, by the way?
Swannies. Gerard knows that. He thumped me last year.
I think I ask you every year. I just keep forgetting. Anyway, to take us through it, which one did you do first, and how did you settle? What are you going to do first, the Pies?
Yeah, did the Pies first. I draw them on prelim weekend as the games fall.
Yep.
Because I like to draw in the moment. You know, it's like drawing my political cartoons. There's got to be a deadline and it's got to be, racing to the clock. So I like to draw them on that weekend. Pies were first, of course. And, I did something like this in 2018, the big swooping magpie, because I love that image, but they do seem to swoop in and win games.
What about the eye?
The eye's critical.
Yeah, what have you done with the eye?
Well, if you look at magpies...
We're going to zoom in on the eye, please. I'm not director.
Eyes are critical. They are critical. They are a focal point. And magpies have this reddish coloured eye, and it's almost like almost like something like the Terminator. So the eye was critical, especially when you've got
the Terminator.
The Terminator.
Great stuff.
And when you've got a black and white drawing. So the only two coloured things of this are the eye and the glowing interior of the Gold Cup. And I think that's good.
And a little nod to Braden Maynard there.
That's right, Gerard. If you look very closely, he does have Braden Maynard's haircut, which is a classic.
All right, it's your first time at the Lion, given that they haven't been in since 2004.
It is. It is my first time, Gerard, and how exciting to draw a Lion there. You know, I sort of was looking at Aslan, you know, the Witch, the Lion and the Wardrobe. I was like, oh, this lion, and watching a bit of Lion King to see how I should draw this thing. But in the end, I just took it upon myself. And the eyes in this are closed, which is like the sort of exaltation, you know, when players do that.
Did you have a choice? Because he's pretty chuffed, that lion, isn't he?
He's pretty
feels
happy.
pretty happy.
Yeah.
To get that fierce lion look rather than a chuffed lion look.
Yeah, I put eyeballs on him, and
Yeah.
he did look fierce, but I wanted him to be like, you know, because the Brisbane Lions have almost been there, and they haven't quite got there.
Yeah.
If they get there this year, it will be an affirmation of what they've been building for the last few years.
The tattoos.
Few little tags in this one. The Roy boys. I think, you know, for all those Melbourne supporters who...
Well done.
Yeah, Fitzroy, the Roy boys, and of course the skull with the Gabba, with the rose in its teeth. We all know the Gabatoir this year. They've never lost there. So I thought I would pay respect to that, and that's helped them get there, obviously.
How long for each one?
To draw,
Yep.
a day each, and then on the Monday we send them off to the AFL, and there's a bit of tweaking that goes on.
Why do they have to tweak it for?
Well, they asked me what this tattoo was about.
Is that none of your business? It's my cartoon. Gil?
There, Gil's the boss.
Oh, not
You know,
of
it's his
you.
last year. He can't let go, so he's got a fiddle.
They'll look great in front windows and on walls for years to come. Mark, thanks for bringing them in, and well done.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nino.
All right, there's another little part that Courier Mail has got the Charlie Cameron face masks in the paper tomorrow. So right across Brisbane.
Can't you put them on?
No, you've got to cut them out, not pop them out.
We'll find some
So
scissors.
they'll be in the Courier Mail tomorrow.